Welcome again. So here's what happened in the last few hours. Russia's defense ministry says the entire crew of the missile cruiser, the Moskva, was evacuated after an ammunition explosion caused by a fire. A cruiser suffered serious damage and the cause of the fire is still under investigation. But the defense ministry is yet to share further details on the incident.
The Atlant-class missile cruiser, launched in 1979, is armed with 15 anti-ship missiles and many more air defense missiles, torpedoes and guns. It is part of the Black Sea Fleet and has been engaged in operations off the coast of Ukraine since February this year. Ukraine, on the other hand, claims that a battery of their Neptune anti-ship missiles hidden in Odessa had successfully struck the Moskva twice, setting the cruiser ablaze. They also claim the Moskva started sinking, but Russian military have denied that, saying the ship is still afloat.
Here are satellite images released on Wednesday showing the Moskva Russian missile cruiser in the port of Sevastopol before it was damaged by an ammunition blast. Interfax said the crew had been evacuated and blamed the blast on a fire and said the cause was being investigated. One Ukrainian official says the Moskva was hit by 2 Neptune missiles which had been guarding the Black Sea, but did not give any evidence. The 12,500-ton ship has a crew of around 500. The Moskva is the second major ship known to have suffered serious damage since the start of the war. Last month, Ukraine said it had destroyed a landing support ship, the Orsk, on the smaller Sea of Azov. Russia's Navy has launched cruise missiles into Ukraine, and its activities in the Black Sea are crucial to supporting land operations in the south of the country, where it's battling to seize full control of the port of Mariupol. Commissioned in 1983, the Moskva was armed with 16 anti-ship Vulcan cruise missiles with a range of at least 700 kilometers. In other news around Ukraine, the city of Chernihiv in the north has been left severely ravaged as the war continues in Ukraine. Even critical infrastructure is in ruins after the city came under repeated bombardment. The Ukrainian government has promised it will spend millions to help reconstruct the shattered infrastructure around the area. Authorities are also working to restore road links between the capital Kyiv and Chernihiv. Work is said to be underway to build temporary passages for automobile transport near the 2 key bridges which have been destroyed in the region. Meanwhile, Ukraine's State Border Guard Service says it has reclaimed territory close to the country's corridor with Belarus. In a video uploaded on social media by the border guard, men dressed in military uniform bearing the Ukrainian flag walk past the checkpoint with an open barrier, saying they are approaching the border. Inside the checkpoint office, there is an open fridge with some of its contents and other items discarded on the floor. The men then reinstate the border posts and flutter the Ukrainian flag on a nearby flagpole. German pilots are helping to deliver medical aid for victims of the war in Ukraine and to take Ukrainian refugees with special needs back to Germany. In the meantime, U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday approved provision of $800 million worth of military aid to Ukraine. The president officially announced the decision after a phone call with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. He said in a statement that as the conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues, the U.S., together with allies, will transport more resources to Ukraine. The weapons may include some new equipment like unmanned ships, Mi-17 transport helicopters, and heavy ground artillery systems such as houses. The U.S. has provided Ukraine with weapons, including Stinger air defense systems, Javelin anti-tank missiles, ammunition, chemical weapons detection equipment, and medical supplies, according to the Department of Defense.
Well, there have been reactions to the U.S. president's promise of an additional $800 million in U.S. military assistance to Ukraine, expanding the scope of the assistance provided ahead of a wider Russian assault expected in eastern Ukraine.
One of those reactions is coming from retired U.S. Army major and expert in urban warfare at the Madison Policy Forum Tank, John Spencer, who says he is excited to see that the United States was sending artillery and artillery rounds.
In a howitzer is a very large artillery round that when it impacts, it can really hurt a military formation. Even inside of a tank, it can really mess them up. So you want systems like that that can fire 30, 40 kilometers away from where you are, trying to break up the military long before it gets close to you. And that's what Ukrainians need at this moment. They need to destroy the Russian convoys before they even get to the cities or near to the locations they want to take. That's why it's one of the top requests right now, because they're so powerful and so far-reaching that they can destroy so much, especially in the open. I agree this is a shift because we haven't seen some of these weapons directly listed on these items. We've seen smaller things, right? The javelins, the drones, all of it was critical in those phases. In this phase, I think it is a shift in policy to say, absolutely, we recognize that Ukraine needs the ability to fight Russia in the open and to prevent basically their loss in eastern Ukraine, right? So they defeated Russia in the first phase. They prevented Kyiv from falling. Now they have to defeat Russia in the east. And I think that, I'll say that, I think this is a shift in policy and recognizing the tools that are needed. And for once, there was even armored personnel carriers listed on that. There were helicopters listed on it. That's different for sure. So the rounds are the other aspect. Right now, we've seen a lot of fire, to be clear, but in the likeliness of what this is going to happen as Russia really attempts to take eastern Ukraine, they're going to need thousands of rounds a day. 10,000, 20,000 rounds of artillery a day to destroy Russian forces moving or trying to get into position to really encircle them.
Let's talk to the VOA's Anna Shchenikova, who is in Kyiv. Anna, great to see you, as always. Help us clarify what's happened to Russia's Moskva missile ship. The Ukrainian government has admitted 2 of its Neptune missiles hit the ship, causing the fire and sinking the ship. But the Russians say the ship is not sunken, and they're still investigating, what caused the fire. What's the true story here?
The moment is that reportedly 2 Ukrainian missiles Neptune hit the ship, and for the moment we don't have confirmation that the ship has sunk. According to the latest information that was confirmed, the ship was severely damaged, and this damage is one of the biggest. It's actually the biggest damage of this kind of ship and this kind of attack in general since the Second World War. So for the moment, what we know that the ship is still on the go with the help of additional technical ships which are helping it to be transferred to Sevastopol port. But again, there is no enough confirmation and confirmation at all about that. But definitely it was quite a huge strike, and all the ammunition on board was destroyed, and there were a lot of explosions. So apparently we will have some more details soon.
Yeah, and I know that the investigation into the use of chemical weapons is probably ongoing right now. In the meantime, what is now being referred to as a genocide, and that's all thanks to the United States, although France disagrees. How else has President Zelensky described the war in Ukraine?
Description which is given by both Ukrainian president and Ukrainian government. Today, Ukrainian parliament has voted that it, on the official level, that it is a genocide of the Ukrainian nation. In general, we all see, and Ukrainian president has confirmed that and has specified that and highlighted that a lot of times, that this war is very much oriented on the civilians and on the civilian infrastructure and critical infrastructure. So this is definitely and clearly quite a weird target if we remember that Russia was accusing Ukrainian of genocide in Donbass or any other any other rights that Ukraine didn't give to all the people in Ukraine, like Russian speakers and so on and so forth. But what we see now is that actually how Russia is acting in Ukraine is clearly this nation, Ukrainian country. So this is the main explanation and the main comment that we get from the president and from the parliament.
And Anna, there have been more promises of military equipment to help Ukraine fight the next phase of the war, but could you help us explain what that dimension is?
Is that in addition to the protection weapons, Ukraine will get weapons for attack, and most importantly, Ukraine will get medium-range weapons, which will definitely help and which will be capable of long-distance targets. This is, again, what is confirmed so far. And of course, Ukraine was asking for this for quite a long time. And as we know, some countries already agreed on that. So Ukraine is expecting this kind of weapons very soon.
And Anna, you know, just reading President Putin calling for diversion of Russia's energy exports towards Asia, warning that European countries are destabilizing the market, moving away from Russian oil and gas, attempting to push out Russian supplies and replacing energy sources. Well, we haven't talked about the impact this is having on Ukraine. The economy has taken a hit, but how is it still existing in the midst of this invasion?
Very difficult situation for Ukrainian economy as well. However, Ukraine, for quite a long time, since 2014, since the annexation of Crimea and invasion in Donbas, was working very hard on kind of changing the ways of gas imports and as much as the country could. So what we can see now is definitely that Ukraine is trying to find other ways of imports and other sources of imports. As we know, Ukraine is the main transit area and for Russian gas. And what we clearly see that Gazprom has decreased this transits. So what we can also confirm that it's 68% decrease of transits through Ukrainian territory, while delivery through the Nord Stream has reached almost full transit capacity. So probably this is the main, the main point if we talk about gas question. But again, as other European countries, Ukraine is also looking to alternatives, and definitely Ukraine already decreased very much the imports since.
Anna Chernikova, thank you for speaking with us, and continue to stay safe in Ukraine. More now on President Joe Biden's comments and what he says is a genocide taking place in Ukraine. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the Biden administration would further assess whether to launch its own formal review of crimes committed by Russian forces in Ukraine. Genocide, considered the most serious international offense, was first used to describe the Nazi Holocaust. It was established in 1948 as a crime under international law in the United Nations Convention. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has killed thousands of people and displaced millions. Moscow calls it its actions in Ukraine a special operation to destroy Ukraine's military capabilities and capture what it views as dangerous nationalists. But Ukraine and the West say Russia launched an unprovoked war of aggression.
The president calling what's going on in Ukraine genocide. What changed? What did the president see? What did he hear in the days between saying these were simply war crimes and this genocide?
Well, he called it a genocide yesterday, not once, but twice, actually, because, as he said yesterday, it's becoming clearer and clearer each day that it is Putin's aim to wipe out the idea of being Ukrainian, that we're seeing greater brutality increase day by day. And some of that, I will note, note is because we're gaining greater access to areas. We have more intelligence on what's happening in areas. Leaders are speaking out more about it, and frankly, there's also reporting about what is happening on the ground. But to give you some specifics, I would note that, of course, what we saw in Bucha was not an anomaly as Ukrainian forces searched towns that Russian forces previously occupied as they're pulling back and moving to the east. The mayor and the city council of Mariupol are reporting high numbers of civilian casualties. The train station attack just over the weekend killed more than 50 civilians. The UN has recently recorded 4,450 civilian casualties, all just since February 24th, and the real number, we believe, is likely much higher.
Thanks, Jen. A question about the president's conversation today with President Zelensky. Did they talk about the possibility of moving U.S. diplomats back into Ukraine?
I don't have more details of that. I will tell you that our objective is to do exactly that. And we, of course, assess in a process that's led by the State Department security considerations, who the right personnel to go back first would be. And that certainly is something the president would like to see. But I'm not aware of him providing an update on that today.
Also, President Zelensky tweeted that he and the President Biden agreed to, quote, enhanced sanctions. What does that mean?
Additional sanctions, the consideration of additional sanctions, and that's certainly something we're continuing to consider, and the president conveyed that as well.
Sweden and Finland are yet to decide whether or not they will be joining military alliance NATO. Yesterday, we heard from government officials from both countries saying a decision will be made in the coming weeks, and everyone is wondering what Russia thinks about this. Well, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov puts us out of our misery by commenting on the subject, saying that President Vladimir Putin will consider a range of measures to bolster the country's security if Finland and Sweden joins NATO, as soon as the Defense Ministry presents him with proposals on the subject. Peskov, in his address to reporters earlier today, said the ministry still needed time to put the proposals together. The comment echoes Deputy Chairman of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, saying Russia would have to bolster its defenses if Sweden and Finland join NATO, adding that if the two countries join the alliance, then there could be no more talk of a nuclear-free Baltic, as the balance must be restored.
In the meantime, NATO is expected to introduce a fast-track mechanism for admitting Finland and Sweden as members. So says Associate Professor, School of Politics and International Relations at East China Normal University, Zhang Jin. Russia sees NATO expansion as a red line that threatens its security and has warned Finland and neighbour Sweden not to join the alliance.
Strategic calculation and threat.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson today announced that tens of thousands of asylum seekers would be sent to Rwanda under a new partnership.
That's right. He made the comments as he outlined measures designed to tackle the problem of cross-channel migration.
Anyone who had arrived in Britain illegally since January the 1st could now be relocated to Rwanda in Central Africa, which would disrupt the business model of people smuggling gangs. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says the new measure is designed to tackle the problem of cross-channel migration.
Crucially, it will also allow us to prosecute those who arrive illegally with life sentences for anyone piloting the boats, and to identify, intercept, and investigate these boats. From today, the Royal Navy will take over operational command from Border Force in the Channel, taking primacy for our operational response at sea, in line with many of our international partners, with the aim that no boat makes it to the UK undetected. This will send a clear message to those piloting the boats. If you risk other people's lives in the Channel, you risk spending your own life in prison. People who do make it to the UK will be taken not to hotels at vast public expense, rather they will be housed in accommodation centres like those in Greece, with the first of these to open shortly.
British Interior Minister Priti Patel travelled to Kigali, Rwanda, to sign the partnership agreement and presented it at a joint news conference with Rwandan Foreign Minister Vincent Biruta. Patel says it's the biggest overhaul of Britain's immigration system in decades.
Today, the United Kingdom and Rwanda have signed a joint new migration and economic development partnership to put an end to this deadly trade in people smuggling. This is part of the United Kingdom's new plan for immigration to control our borders, protect our communities, stop dangerous illegal migration, help the world's most desperate people, and welcome international talents to the UK. It is the biggest overhaul of our immigration system in decades, underpinned by a Nationality and Borders Bill, which will soon become law.
The Rwandan foreign minister adds that the partnership would offer migrants opportunities to build new lives, but at the same time benefit Rwanda's development.
By relocating migrants to Rwanda, investing in their personal development and providing education, employment and other opportunities, we are giving them the chance to make new lives in our country as full members of our communities. This will not only help them, but it will benefit Rwanda and Rwandans and help to advance our own development. And for those who don't wish to make Rwanda their new home, they will be facilitated to return to their country of origin or settle in other receiving countries. We believe this partnership with the UK offers a unique and innovative approach that will provide safe haven and opportunity to those in need.
The British government says it would contribute an initial £120 million to the partnership, but the plan has drawn swift and strong criticism from opposition parties, with Interior Minister Priti Patel's Labour Party counterpart, Yvette Cooper, saying it's extortionate as well as unworkable and unethical. Questions have also been raised over the human rights record of the Rwandan government and its president, Paul Kagame. Last year, more than 28,000 migrants and refugees made the crossing from mainland Europe to Britain. The arrival of migrants on rickety boats has been a source of tension between France and Britain, especially after 27 migrants drowned when their dinghy deflated in November.
Germany's health minister Karl Lauterbach says a plot to kidnap him showed that radicalization among people protesting against coronavirus restrictions now went well beyond the issue of COVID-19. He was addressing a news conference earlier today after prosecutors said they had foiled the kidnapping plot. He says it would continue as before and try to bring people together over different opinions on anti-corona measures. The plot to kidnap him is the latest in a series of incidents that have highlighted the anger of some Germans over restrictions on those not vaccinated and proposals to make vaccination compulsory for the general public.
American actor Cuba Gooding Jr. has pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor count of forcibly touching a woman at a New York nightclub back in 2018 as part of his agreement with prosecutors that spares the Oscar-winning actor any immediate jail time. The guilty plea, in which Gooding also admitted in court to subjecting two other women to non-consensual physical contact in 2018 and 2019, came 3 years after he was arrested. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office said this in a statement. Under the plea agreement, if the 54-year-old Gooding continues to undergo court-ordered counseling for 6 months, he can withdraw his misdemeanor plea and plead guilty to a lesser violation of harassment. If he fails to comply, he faces up to 1 year in jail.
Well, staying in the United States, in another development, authorities have arrested the man suspected of setting up smoke bombs and shooting 10 passengers in a New York subway car, capping a manhunt that had renewed hours of violence in the city's transit system. Our New York City police officers walked the suspect, Frank James, out of a police precinct and into a waiting car in Manhattan's East Village neighborhood. He was arrested with the help of tips from residents following a 30-hour search, according to police. He faces a federal charge for violating a law prohibiting attacks on mass transit. Keaton Sewell, the police commissioner, said at a press conference that James had 9 prior arrests in New York and 3 in New Jersey. If convicted of charges in Tuesday's attack, he could face life in prison.
Well, we have to warn that some of you may find the next video disturbing. Police in Grand Rapids, Michigan have released 3 videos of a police officer shooting a black man dead as the 2 men fought in the rain on a suburban front lawn following a traffic stop. That happened on April the 4th this year. The man who was shot dead was 26-year-old Patrick Yoya. His death was has outraged family members and touched off protests in Grand Rapids by activists who say it represents the latest example of police violence against young black men. The video taken from a dashboard camera and the officer's body-worn cameras show Yoya standing beside a car on a rainy street, seemingly confused as the policeman repeatedly asks for a driver's license, orders him to get back inside the vehicle. Yoya appeared to be complying, but then closed the driver's side door and walked away and resisted the officer's attempts to handcuff him. And following a short foot chase, the 2 men grapple on the lawn, at one point fighting over the officer's stun gun before Yoya is shot. The incident began after the officer stopped Yoya over suspicions involving his license plate.
Hey, stay in the car.
We're going to
stay in the car. Stay in the car. Get in the car. Dude, I'm stopping you. Do you have a license? Do you have a license?
For what?
I'm stopping you. Do you have a license?
What done?
Well, guess who wants to buy Twitter? If you guess Tesla owner and billionaire Elon Musk, then you're right. He's offering as much as $41 billion in cash, and this just days after rejecting a seat on the social media company's board. Musk's offer price of $54.20 per share, which was disclosed in a regulatory filing on Thursday today, represents a 38% premium to Twitter's April 1st close, the last trading day before the Tesla CEO's more than 9% stake in the company was made. Twitter's shares jumped 12% in pre-market trading. Musk said in a letter to Twitter chairman Brett Taylor, says, making my investment, I now realize the company will neither thrive nor serve this societal imperative in its current form. Twitter needs to be transformed as a private company. Earlier this week, Musk said he had abandoned a plan to join Twitter's board just as his tenure was about to start. Taking the board seat would have prevented him from a possible takeover of the company. Musk has amassed over 80 million followers on Twitter since joining the site in 2009 and has used the platform to make several announcements, including teasing a go-private deal for Tesla that landed him in hot water with regulators.
The Shanghai Tesla Gigafactory in the world, and arguably
all right. Everyone.
Interesting times for Twitter. Well, let's go over to Africa, where the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, is warning that Eastern Africa is facing the very real prospect that the rains will fail for a 4th consecutive season, placing Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia into a drought of a length not experienced in the last 40 years. The UN says the Horn of Africa is on the brink of the worst famine in decades, says support is urgently needed.
While visiting Higlo camp for displaced people in Ethiopia's Somali region, UNICEF's regional director for Southern and Eastern Africa, Mohamed Fall, says that about 20 million people face starvation in Kenya, Somalia and Ethiopia. According to Fall, insurgencies in Ethiopia and Somalia have also deepened food insecurity.
Unfortunately, we are facing the same situation in the entire Horn of Africa. I think for the moment in the region I'm following through, you have Ethiopia, you have Somalia, you have northern part of Kenya, and we are talking about around 20 million people whose life are now threatened by food insecurity, probably high level of malnutrition, severe lack of water, loss of all the livelihood, loss of livestock, population movement across border. It become one of the most important humanitarian crises.
2 years of conflict in northern Ethiopia's Tigray region has left millions facing famine-like conditions and created a hunger crisis in neighboring regions. It is anticipated that the upcoming rainy season will be 20 to 45% less than the average, meaning for the first time, Ethiopia would have 4 consecutive failed rainy seasons in a row. In all, drought-impacted areas, malnutrition rates are increasing at an alarming rate. In the worst-hit regions of Somalia and Oromia, around 225,000 malnourished children and over 100,000 pregnant and breastfeeding women need urgent nutritional support.
This drought is the worst drought that we have seen for the last 20 years. It affected the whole community, especially children, especially the under 5 children. So we are getting here a lot of malnourished children. More than the children that we have seen 6 months ago. The number of admissions have increased.
Meanwhile, UNICEF's regional director for Southern and Eastern Africa adds that global food and fuel prices are skyrocketing in many parts of the world because of the war in Ukraine.
We are also living through the far-reaching repercussion of the Ukraine conflict, which we know is already impacting on the wheat price. And we know that countries that I have mentioned, Somalia, Kenya, and Ethiopia, depend on over 70% of their wheat imports from those 2 countries. You have also the issues of the price of oil, which have skyrocketing and which is impacting across all aspects of life and all aspects of commodity that these people need for their daily life.
About 346 million people in Africa are facing severe food insecurity, meaning they have likely experienced hunger in the worst crisis since 2017. Last year, according to UNICEF, the figure was about 286 million.
Today, and head of Iran's Revolutionary Guards Quds Force, Ismail Qani, says the country will harshly confront Israel wherever it feels necessary. Back in March, Tehran targeted what he called secret Israeli bases during a missile attack on Iraq's northern Kurdish regional capital, Erbil. The assault was meant to avenge Israeli airstrikes that killed Iranian military personnel in Syria. Qani said, wherever this criminal regime has wanted to show its face, the Islamic Order has announced to them that if any violation to the interests of the order takes place anywhere in the world, we will respond to you and we know where you are very well. One example, Erbil. A commander pledged we will undoubtedly support all struggles against Israel and occupying regime. Tensions deepened at a time when Iran and world powers were engaged in talks in reviving the 2015 nuclear deal, which Israel opposes. While not a party to the nuclear negotiations between Iran and world powers in Vienna, Israel has conferred with the U.S. administration in hopes of wielding more clout over any revival of the deal with Tehran that was reached over its objections.
Today is International Moment of Laughter Day, a day to remind people to laugh out every day till LOL, if you will. Izzy Giselle, the originator of the day, who teaches about using humor to improve workplace environments and relationships, to adapting improv theater techniques, to advancing personal self-actualization, says laughing out loud is as essential as breathing. He says laughter comes right after breathing. It's just about the healthiest thing you can do. It relieves stress, instills optimism, raises self-confidence, diffuses resistance to change, enhances all your relationships.
Well, he says if laughing isn't your thing, then you should try doing one of these. You should try chuckling, try giggling, try guffawing, snickering, cackling, chortling, and a list of other things. He also encourages people to make it their goal to laugh, to make someone laugh, or to share a laugh. In the meantime, here are some interesting facts about laughing. Back in 1786, laughter was used as a critique. Poets used laughter to mock corrupt lifestyles of the Spanish aristocracy using satirical poems. In 1914, the role of laughter in wartime was acknowledged in a weekly Russian journal. And then in 1962, here in Africa, a village in Tanzania suffered from a laughter epidemic, starting with 3 girls and later spread throughout the village of Kashasha. Finally, in 2005, a study proved that laughter helps increase blood flow.
So we should be laughing every minute.
I think I feel a lot better reading this story. I don't know what it is about the story, but I'm already laughing. Joining us now is a man who makes people laugh for a living. He's popular comedian Bethel Njoko, better known as Senator. And if you've listened to him on radio, you know he is full of laughs, right?
Senator, thanks for joining us. He joins us from Abuja studios. Welcome.
Thank you, Millicent. Thank you, Marachi.
Well, Senator, you're used to making people laugh, but have you laughed or made someone laugh or even shared a laugh today?
People have been laughing at me, actually, not just me laughing. People have been laughing at me. I traveled this morning to Abuja from Lagos, and people keep giggling and laughing at the airport. That's him, that's the funny man. I watch him on TV, so I'm also a laughing stock at the same time. So we've been sharing laugh all through today.
I must have felt really good, right? Nigerians have come to appreciate comedy over the years. And in fact, we do find humor in even the most serious of situations. So is it like a coping mechanism, or, that we're just in denial, of the current realities that we face?
Well, it's a mixture of both. There are certain people who laughter would help their health condition, I must say. So with that, you can't say it's not really living in reality, But for some people, it's living, denying themselves from the reality, because the truth is, at the end of the day, the problem is still there. But you laugh for the moment, actually. So there are purposes for laughter. Laughter, it's a mode of expression, a natural mode of expression for. It might be for the positive or the negative. So you can't just say that you are not living in reality. It all depends on the situation the person finds himself. But it's always good to laugh, though.
And Senator, there's so much doom and gloom in the news today, as you've alluded to, killings by bandits, either it's Plateau State, northwest Nigeria. Reports of gender-based violence. There's also the war in Ukraine, Syria, political unrest in some of our neighboring countries. Some would say it is a bit insensitive to even be talking about this right now. Should people still consider being humorous at this time?
It is a sensitive one. I must say that that's not good news out there. But at the same time, as artists, as mirrors of the society, putting these situations in plays, in music, instead of singing and shouting about how many bottles you popped in the club. If we can make our music more, more focused, more about this kind of ills in the society, I think it would be a better thing to do. Laughter comes in at this point in time. While people listen to very good songs or watch very good movies that, can make them laugh. It could be a comedy movie, but it's about the war, it's about terrorism, it's about the bandits and all that. So we take some time out to actually, understand that, oh, this thing we're actually laughing about, I'm also part of it. Oh, okay, I'm supposed to make decisions at the level of polity, and I'm laughing at this movie, it looks funny. But you see this thing about, kidnapping, about banditry, I don't think it's right in this place. So bringing in laughter in this situation is in place. But aside that, it's a very sensitive thing. But then we must also stand by, the values in life. We must keep them upright.
It's also very easy to think that people who make us laugh have nothing that saddens them in their lives. Pretty much how, people talk to me and say, oh, I must be laughing every day because I'm married to a comedian.
But you're not, right?
How do you keep laughing through your pain?
The pain is a reality, actually. The price of Gary is the same thing you buy. The price of rice is the same thing I buy. So it's eating us. At times you don't have the chance to go for your children's school events, all those kind of things. They weigh on you, but at the same time, you don't forget the fact that what you do has got a special passion, and that's why your art is different. So the passion keeps us. So at times I laugh over my pains, I laugh to correct myself. Sometimes I laugh and I tell myself, now you do this one, that kind of stuff. So the laughter for us is also a check, but at the same time, we are humans. We must not forget that.
So, Senator, as we close this interview, we need to have our moment of laughter. So, where do you go to in your mind, and what's the go-to joke for you that really gets us roaring with laughter?
I didn't get that question again, please.
You need to give us our moments of laughter, Senator, at the end of the day. I mean, you have to give us something to close this show out with, something to really laugh about. I mean, Millicent hasn't been laughing at home, so, I mean, give us something.
Now I get your point. I landed at the airport in Abuja this morning, and I ran into a friend of mine. He said, "Oh boy, are they run?" No. I said, under which party? He said, "No, they run out of the country. No, they run which party? I know the politician." So the politicians have brought this whole run thing, and it's getting us so confused. So it's crazy.
It is funny.
Melissa, are you really sure you don't hear any jokes? You're really sure you don't hear any jokes at home, Millicent? Are you sure you hear no jokes at home?
There are jokes here and there. Senator, thanks so much. Bethel Njoku as well. Thank you so for joining us from Abuja. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that's the show today. Remember, your moments of laughter is important. It will keep you sane.
Thank you for watching The World Today. I'm Millicent Walker.
And I'm Amarachi Ubani.